What's up everybody, another beautiful day on the Dragon Isles, and today I'll be going over my top 5 melee specs going into Dragonflight, mainly from a gameplay perspective, which I find the most fun to play, that has the most interesting toolkit or synergy, and preferably that's fun and performs well on both single target and AoE. And I hope this helps you on your quest to find a main in Dragonflight. If you want it in the form of a tier list, whichever class combined with spec has the most letters in its name is the best one, as it has the most letters. Now I can't count that high, so I can't figure it out myself, but let me know in the comments based on that which is the best. Moving on in no particular order, except being my all-time favorite. We have the Enhancement Shaman.
Stormstrike!
Now I've been a huge Enhancement fan ever since Wrath of the Lich King, and going into Dragonflight it really feels like the best of Enhancement from Wrath to now. Lots of old returning powers in the new talent trees and combinations that we haven't been able to do before. But the overall strength lies in Enhancement playstyle, which is currently a non-stop Stormstrike train with a constant flow of Maelstrom empowered lightning bolts and chain lightnings, as well as tons and tons of wolfies. So currently I've been running a lot with a Stormstrike centered build, link in the description, where everything hinges on Stormstrike, Stormstrike and more Stormstrike. Anytime you mash it, you generate a ton of Maelstrom. If you don't cap it out on 10 stacks instantly, you'll get there very soon. And if the procs are with you, more often than not, Stormstrike resets Stormstrike, and anytime you spend 10 Maelstrom, you reset Stormstrike, and anytime you generate Maelstrom, you reduce the cooldown on your wolfies, which now has a talent which makes them AoE, and these wolfies are hella strong on AoE now. On top of this, anytime we Stormstrike, we have a chance to pop Ascendance, which makes us generate a ton more Maelstrom, and we spend 5 Maelstrom on either Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning anytime we Stormstrike, or well, Windstrike during Ascendance, which is probably the most fun you can have on AoE in my opinion. Proccing Ascendance, getting a few Windstrike resets, and bam, you're slamming away Windstrikes every global, and every time you do, you arc out Chain Lightning across the packs like the Sith Lord you are. This also works very well on single target, just not as satisfying, but hey, I'll take it. It is extremely fast paced, almost always something to press, and everything just feeds into the non-stop Stormstrike Maelstrom loop. But you also have options to build other styles of enhancement focused around Lava Lash and Flame Shock, for example. And going into the utility side of life, we've been blessed with totems and survivability, being able to swap around depending on encounter what we need. Tremor Totem, Poison Cleanse, insane group-wide healing with Ancestral Guidance, and the new Thunderstorm talent, which makes it knock mobs into the air rather than all over the place, turning it into a low cooldown AoE interrupt / disrupt, if you will. We also have Purges, AoE stuns, group mobility from Rushing Wind Totem, personal mobility, solid defensives, Wind Fury Totem, Bloodlust. The list goes on. And all of this turns Enhancement to one of the best specs in my opinion. Not saying best as in play this and you'll insta-win at whatever you do. I'm saying play this and you'll have a world of fun, as long as you like a fast-paced, well-designed spec with tons of utility. However, if you want more time than half a second to react to what you're gonna press next, Enhancement might not be for you. Next out, keeping with the fast-paced theme, Fury Warrior joins the battle. Now, Fury Warrior going into Dragonflight is the same old, but with a lot more synergy across the board, as well as an abundance of cooldowns. You get a cooldown, you get a cooldown. Being able to have access to Odin's Fury from Legion, Thunderous Roar and AoE Bleed, Avatar, Recklessness, Spear of Boostion, as well as Ravashare, on top of an already extremely fun rotation, makes you feel, just the tinsiest tad bursty. There's also a few different builds and playstyles you can go for. Personally, I've been in love with the new Annihilator talents and build you can make with it, link in the description, which removes Raging Blow but gives your auto attacks increased damage and rage gain, combined with an extremely low cooldown on Bloodthirst and Gushing Wounds from BFA, which is a bleed anytime Bloodthirst crits. On top of the new Reckless Abandon, which gives you 2 empowered Bloodthirst following a rampage, so most of the time you're slapping down 2 bloodbaths into a rampage into 2 bloodbaths and a rampage, sprinkled with a metric ton of executes in between. As sudden death do be proccing a lot, especially with our new 4-set tier bonus that we can get in the new raid, which increases our chance to get sudden death procs. There's also a ton of different talents which improves auto attack damage, speed, rage gain, which greatly synergizes with this, and the possibility of going single-minded fury for one-hander fantasy, which is actually performing pretty well, so here's to hoping. So with this, you're pretty much constantly enraged. Rawr. You're an angry warrior. You'll pump out an ungodly amount of rampages due to our somewhat insane rage generation from Annihilator auto attacks and execute procs, as well as your low cooldown Bloodthirst, combined with the aforementioned swarm of cooldowns we have at our disposal, which also generates rage, might I add. We are so bursty, so spamming, and so satisfying. Charging into a pack, popping Avatar, Thunderous Roar, and Recklessness while talented into Torment, the Blade Master, which makes Avatar cast Odin's Fury and vice versa. And with the new talent, which makes Odin's Fury instantly enrage you and give you Meat Cleaver, so you charge in, pop all of your cooldowns instantly into 2-3 rampages back to back, pull aggro, die, but you'll have so much fun before you die. Now going into the utility side of life, we've only gotten stronger. Better Survive, party-wide Fear Cleanse from Berserking Rage, single target and AoE stuns, slows, instant heals, defensives, Rallying Cry if you can be arsed to spec into it. And a big plus with this one for me is also that Annihilator Fury works extremely well on both AoE and single target. The rotation really doesn't suffer a ton on AoE, so you're not stuck in a case of excelling throughout trash in a dungeon and then go slowpoke mode on a boss. You just keep slamming away always. Oh, there's one mob, oh, there's 20. I'ma slap all of ya. So yeah, if you want a really fast sug, Fury's the way to go. However, if you want yet another fast-paced champion of bursty spam, we have Outlaw Rogue. Now, as far as utility goes, rogues are still rogues, champions of control with stuns, incaps, blind, soothe, shroud, and the survivability of a cockroach on steroids. So not much to address there, but if you want to be able to really control the tide of a pack in a dungeon, rogues are usually the way to go. Now, going into a dungeon environment, as far as DPSing as Outlaw, we've only gotten more fun in my opinion, with tons and tons of tiny procs to keep track of, as well as different buffs from Roll the Bones, which changes up your rotation constantly, mostly for the better. And the synergy between abilities is very well designed, and most things you press fuel something else. And the non-stop cooldown reduction from Restless Blades makes it very fast-paced with liberal cooldown usage. You're not tied to the whole, ooh, I want to wait and stack up cooldowns. You're just, I have a cooldown, I'ma use it. So with the build I've been running the most during beta, anytime you Sinister Strike, you have a high chance to get a pistol shot proc, which will instantly cap out your combo points. Pop in between the eye, followed by a 200% damage increase pistol shot, which can be combined with pistol shot procs to further increase its damage. And as soon as between the eyes is on cooldown, you dispatch spam like there's no tomorrow, using Tistle T anytime you run into small windows of energy starvation, which are rare. Then you have Cold Blood, Adrenaline Rush, and Dread Blades mostly on cooldown. Reroll Bones often if you get crappy buffs. True Bearing and Broadside are really nice now for increased cooldown reduction and more combo point generation, as well as generator damage, which pairs up with the 200% damage increased pistol slap. And then you can use the cooldown Keep It Rollin' to refresh or extend any number of Roll the Bones buff, including the 5-second procs you can get from dispatching enemies. So it's not unlikely that you can force a 5 buff 30 seconds based off Roll the Bones procs. Otherwise, you can just use it on 3 buffs, including True Bearing or Broadside. Then we press Blade Flurry and everything starts melting a bit. Popping cooldowns like Dread Blades into Blade Flurry is extremely satisfying, pumping out all of those spenders. Generator spender. And overall, it's just such a high octane kind of build that I love, with so much synergy across the board. So it feels like everything you press is impactful and has a purpose rather than just, oh, I can press anything, I guess I press this. Because pressing Dispatch and it does only damage is fun. Pressing Dispatch and it deals more damage the more you press it, it reduces most of your cooldowns with Restless Blade and has a chance to give you Roll the Bones, is a lot more fun in my book than just dealing damage. Same thing with Between the Eyes. Ooh, I can slap it, do a bit of damage, or I can slap it and empower my pistol shot so it deals 200% more damage. I mean, the only downside to Outlaw currently is their target cap. If you have a pack with 40 mobs, they might fall behind. But even though we might not be able to blast 800 targets at the same time, you have super consistent damage and have damage for literally every single pull in a dungeon, no matter where it is or how big the size of the pack. You know those awkward pulls between important moments in the dungeons where you're forced to pull just a few mobs so you then can do a bigger pull? Outlaws got burst for that, and the big pull after, and the weird pull after that. Who needs cooldowns when you have Blade Flurry and well cooldowns all the time? So yeah, Outlaw is just incredibly satisfying to play if you like a very fast-paced build. Because this one is really fast-paced, but it's so fun. And performs great on both AoE, single target, in dungeons, in raids. It's just good overall. Then we have the Havoc Demon Hunter, another fast-paced melee slapper. Now they've been given a lot of love and reworks going into Dragonflight to bring them to, in my opinion, the next level. A lot more synergy across the board, more buttons to press, and a more complex playstyle, which is occasionally extremely hectic as you have like 6 buttons you want to get off at the same time, and there's a lot to keep track of compared to the last time I played Havoc. But everything or most things synergizes extremely well, so you're either slapping out Insane Burst or getting ready to set up another Insane Burst window, and everything just flows really well. On top of that, you also have insane utility in the form of purges, long range interrupts with short cooldown, more survivability than a cockroach on steroids as well. You have things like Darkness, Sigil of Misery, AoE stun, single target stun, and a ton of self-healing through Leech. Oh, and an immune. So with all of this combined, you'll be slapping away glaives on cooldown, which deals a ton of damage on AoE as well as single target, which also empowers your immolation aura damage and rage fire damage explosions from that, which you further empower with initiative and momentum to get that damage increase, sprinkled with a few I-beams, giving you meta for stronger Chaos Strike and Blade Dances, which you can line up into an Essence Break window for even more damage, and the list goes on. You'll also be able to do 500% increased Fell Rush slams into AoE packs, blow up demons on trash so they do damage to everything else and increases your damage. That being said, if you're used to a low button build, this is no longer it, or a lot less so, and it seems to reward proper play a lot, playing into the momentum talents and different setups to maximize damage increase uptime at the right moments, something that I most likely do not execute that well as I don't have a ton of hours played, but even without executing it properly, it still slaps. Just imagine if you played it well. But that being said, you get extremely far by just slapping glaives, I-beams, and immolation aura on cooldown, I'll tell you that much. It is an extremely fun build, works really well on AoE and single target without any modifications to the build, which is something I am a fan of. Of course, I love being able to make different builds and min-max talents, which you very much still can, but it's very feels bad if your build is all aces on AoE and then you get to the boss, which dungeons tend to have, and you hit like a soggy wet napkin, which Havoc very much does not currently. And the utility and survive Havoc brings to raid and dungeons makes them very valuable. And lastly, we have the Retribution Paladin for all your AoE pad needs. Seriously, there's AoE inside their AoEs, and it's extremely fun to play, especially when you have all your cooldowns up, because during cooldowns you're an absolute powerhouse, melting packs left and right, but for once we're actually feeling pretty darn good outside of cooldowns as well. The rotation has a lot more to it than before, there's a lot more synergy across the board, more abilities to press and better cooldowns and sustain, which makes for overall an extremely fun playstyle. Most of the time you're just a non-stop spamming holy machine, consecration generating a ton of holy power, you're getting tons and tons of Art of War procs, which generates a ton of holy power. You're getting Seraphim from it as well to fuel more haste for more procs. Divine Purpose procs you can spend on Divine Storm, Radiant Decree, Empyrean Power procs for more Divine Storms, so sometimes you'll be able to somewhat fire off 4 or 5 Divine Storms back to back if procs are being nice, which is very satisfying. And the addition of being able to slam away an Exorcism dot on AoE is something I didn't know I needed, but it fits very well in the overall rotation, most of the time. And I especially like that Consecration slaps tremendously now if built around it. It adds a lot to the class fantasy for me. I mean, it's a cool spell, you literally consecrate the ground. It deserves to slap. And the synergy between everything makes it so much fun to play. Your Blade of Justice, or Art of War procs rather, are so much more impactful, making each proc really feel impactful, as it now, if spec'd into, gives you Seraphim for 4 seconds, and anytime you spend Art of War procs, you spawn an additional Consecration that stacks with your own, so you're able to have multiple up, and then you can slam away a Divine Storm that increases target's damage taken by Consecration by 100%, making it slap, and Consecration generates holy power, and yeah, it's just crazy. There's just so many feel-good moments as Retribution at the moment, like popping cooldowns and you have Crusade, Avenging Wrath, so you get tons of haste, tons of damage increase, and all your spenders makes you explode on AoE. You slap down Final Reckoning to just burst the heck out of them. Your Radiant Decree instead of Wake of Ashes just melts packs on AoEs. It's just, I don't know, it's just such a well-oiled holy machine. Also, Retribution aura has been buffed, so you don't need people to die to get a proc. And swapping to single target, you're still able to pump out numbers, but you are way more reliant on having cooldowns, as is tradition, compared to on trash or AoE. But there are other builds out there that focuses more on single target. There's lots we can do with this tree. And tying in the utility that Retribution Retribution can bring or Paladin makes them very fun to play in a dungeon environment. And we're able to combat rest now. Hype! And yeah, that's pretty much it for my top 5 melee specs going into Dragonflight. Now I hope this helps narrow down your choice or helps you choose an alt for the new expansion. Let me know in the comments what you're going to main in Dragonflight, sticking with the same old thing or trying out something new. Hit me up! Don't forget the usual stuff, like, subscribe and ring that notification bell, it really helps me out. I also stream progression and testing on Twitch, Stankie Gaming. Make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me and my work. As a patron you get access to the Stankie Gaming Discord, shoutout and videos and lots of other things. Thank you all for watching and I will see you next time.